Today we're going to talk about grace. What is grace and how should we look at grace? Now, I remember a time when I was thinking that grace is just God's unmerited favor, wherein God just overlooks my shortcomings, where He just accepts me the way I am. He looks at my sin and just don't see that. Or He basically took my sin and punished it in Jesus so that He doesn't have to punish me. And I've come to understand that grace is much, much more than that. I would like to read just the definition of grace from Thayer Definitions. It says here, grace is that which affords, or that which can bring, joy, pleasure, delight, sweetness, charm, loveliness, or grace of speech. That is another thing. You can just bring forth a loveliness. It says it's the goodwill, loving kindness, and favor of God. Listen to this. It is the goodwill, the loving kindness, and the favor of God. It's the merciful kindness by which God, exerting His holy influence upon souls, turns them to Christ, keeps, strengthens, increases them in the Christian faith and knowledge and affection, and kindles them to the exercise of Christian virtues. Now that is so powerful, and if we look at that, we find that grace is much, much more than just God not looking at our sin. It is actually God being so kind that He takes man from the place where he was dumped into slavery and where he was dumped into a place where he had to bear the image of the earthly, where he had to bear things like the fruit of the Spirit, bitterness, hatred, fighting with your wife, fighting with your children, being angry at your husband, always seeing the negative, living in fear, and all those kind of things, living with low self-worth, where your life is bound to the way you grew up, the way you were ill-treated, and all those kind of things, where you are bound to what was programmed into you from birth or even before birth, when you're in your mother's womb, where you might have been greatly rejected, and all those kind of things, and then living a life enslaved to all of those things. The grace of God is actually the merciful kindness, and the word kindness here means the temporal disposition or the character which delights in contributing to the happiness of others, which is exercised cheerfully in gratifying their wishes, supplying their wants, and living their distresses. So the grace of God is the kindness of God wherewith He lifts your distress. And your distress can be having an identity, and I believe mankind's distress is death. Mankind's distress is being bound to the law and the power of sin and death. That is the true distress that man is in. The distress that you might be in is not having good relationships with those around you, or living a life of continual turmoil where you cannot forgive, where you cannot see good in others, where you can only see good in what you do and not in others. There is so much things that we can be distressed in and bound in, that the kindness of God cannot be defined by God just smiling over us as we are dying. No, the kindness of God is defined here, and this is Webster's defining the kindness of God as to cheerfully gratify wishes. And what is the wish of man? What is the true wish of man? Mankind's wish, the prayer that we send forth to God as we are going through the torture of legalism, works righteousness, finding your identity in what you do. The prayer to God is, God, give me your life for free, for I cannot attain unto it by my own doing. So what God has come to do is He's come to give us His life for free. He's come to give us and unite us with Himself in Jesus Christ, so that we, free from our willpower, can have peace with our neighbor, joy in our hearts, where we can look at God and find pleasure and delight in Him, where we can look at people and where we can say, the greatest thing, the crown of creation is man. It is mankind. You know, the other day we were just in nature, and I saw all the beauty that there is in nature. And, you know, I looked at that. But when I looked at all the beauty in nature and I thought of God, I couldn't think God being as much, you know, or I would put it this way. I don't want to say as much, but God being completely taken up with just the beauty of a tree. When God looks at man, I think, you know, He could see the beauty of a tree. He could see the beauty of the Grand Canyon, or the beauty of so many things in nature, the beauty of the ocean and whatever. But what God saw was the beauty of people, the beauty of mankind. And He came to exercise His holy influence upon man in such a powerful way that we can be set free from having any life that's lower than His quality of life. He promises us the fruit of the Spirit, and He fulfilled that promise in bringing forth Jesus from the grave, and that is our blessed hope. So I want to say to you, God is gracious, God is good, and God is kind, and His grace is extended towards you in sharing His quality of life with you by His doing. Please don't feel, when you hear that the grace of God is God bringing you into His quality of life, don't feel that you must now bring it forth. That is the last thing. That is what the grace of God has actually brought. He's brought you freedom from you beholding the life of God just as something that is high up there that you can never reach. He's come and said, and He says, this is grace, my child, rest and behold yourself in me at the right hand of the Father in human form. For in Jesus Christ dwells the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and that fullness is the truth about you. Glory to God. Thank you so much for watching this and allowing this message to touch your heart. It's such an honor to share it with you.